Welcome back to Behind the Blog. I am so excited today because we have one of our most recent and amazing integration partners with me today, Ned from Actifai. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you, Lindsay. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're just so excited about this integration. Tell me a little bit about you, Ned, and tell me a little bit about Actifai, your vision for it. Tell me about the problem that you guys were seeking to solve.
Sure. Well, there's no one in the country or in the world who has not heard about or thought about or tried artificial intelligence in some way, shape, or form. And about 8 or 9 years ago, a partner of mine and I created a company really to try to demystify artificial intelligence and bring practical solutions to a variety of industries. And the way we would do that is we would go out and find some company that had a business problem that we thought could be alleviated through the application of AI. And we would build a prototype. And if it worked, we would then try to commercialize that technology. And about 4 years ago, a broadband company came to us and said, we have lots of technology, we have lots of information, lots of data, but we really don't have anything that uses AI to help us with our day-to-day operations. And so that was the start of what became Actifai. And the problem that we tried to solve was um, what product should you offer to a customer, and what key selling points should you use to influence that consumer to buy a product that benefits them, but also benefits you as a company. And let me just expand on that a little bit. If you think about the options that you have when you make an offer to a customer, most companies have various speeds of broadband. They may have video services, they may have telephony services, they may have add-on services such as mesh Wi-Fi products. And if you took the least expensive product that you could sell to a customer, maybe your slowest speed and nothing else, and your biggest package that you could sell to customers, the difference between the average revenue of that small package to that large package might be 10x, 15x. And where you end up with that customer along that spectrum drives the profitability for that customer for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 months. And there were no tools in the marketplace that could really impact where that ended up. And that's what we ended up building. That was the first product.
No, and that's amazing. And to see where it's come today, just with Sonar and the Actify integration and how exciting it is for our customers to see that is just the AI technology that you guys have built and the seamless way that it's integrating with our technology. I think it just makes a really nice experience for our customers. So
So do we.
yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about the integration benefits for ISPs. So, from the customer's standpoint, how does the seamless integration between Actify and Sonar create an end-to-end solution? Can you kind of walk us through
Sure.
a typical experience?
Sure. So let me tell you what Actify does in the background. And let me talk to you then about how it integrates with Sonar. So the idea behind Actify, at least in this first product that we'll talk about, which is new customer acquisition, is that the two or three primary channels for acquisition are online e-commerce, customer service reps, and then typically door-to-door salespeople when you're building out a lot of new fiber to the home and things like that. And what you have to realize is that the consumer, when they're offered broadband-related products, doesn't really know the difference between, do they need 200, 400, 600 gigabit speed? Do they need a mesh Wi-Fi add-on? Do they need the video services? It's very much a little bit of a opaque system to them. They don't really know. And when consumers are offered choice, but they don't understand the differences between those choices, they tend to buy on price, which actually is suboptimal for the company and usually suboptimal for them. At the same time, the company knows almost nothing about that consumer. So either the CSR knows very little or the e-commerce system knows very little about that consumer. So you have two entities that are trying to come to a resolution around what should be sold or bought, but with very, very little information. And that's not a great recipe for success. So what happens is Actifai brings about 2,000 different data points about that consumer that we collect in real time to determine what we should offer and what we should say to that consumer. So, for example, one thing that's obvious is if the consumer is wealthier, they tend to be less price sensitive and may be interested in a more expensive package. If they work from home, they might be interested in a high speed package because they could get video conferencing or media like this, frankly, streamed without interruptions or pauses. So what you can learn about a customer may influence, in fact, what you offer them, but it also might influence what you say to them. So, for example, if you knew that 85% of all the people who work from home in your neighborhood, Lindsay, had bought 1 gigabit service, that might be a keeping up with the Joneses type pitch to convince you that's probably the right product for your home. Or if you knew that they had 4 bedrooms in their house, that might be a good reason to offer a mesh Wi-Fi product because they want to stream information seamlessly in all their rooms. So what you can learn about a consumer really can influence what you, in fact, say to that consumer about what product they want, but also what you say about what the reasons they should buy that product are. And all of that happens in the background. The problem is very few companies, with the exception of the very, very largest companies in the industry, can actually try to do that themselves. And so if you're a smaller or a mid-sized broadband provider, you're kind of competing in the marketplace with the very biggest guys who may have the 100 data scientists on their staff to be able to build that. So it's really infeasible to try to do this on your own. And what happens is that the integration between Sonar and Actifai allows a broadband provider to actually have all of that in the background and automatically make those recommendations and key selling points. So you might have had you might not even have had an e-commerce system. You might have had a kind of form-driven one that says, okay, if you're interested, enter your information here. Or you had a very simple system which said, here's a couple choices, you consumer pick. That with really no integration effort, no programming, and really no setup, changes with our integration to allow the customer to, in a matter of weeks, have an e-commerce system that automatically ingests all that information that we bring, recommends the right product, gives them the right key selling points to do it, and then closes the sale and posts that right into Sonar and uses, for example, Sonar Pay. So there's no work on the customer's behalf to actually do any of that. And that's a game changer because even the largest companies in the industry have a significant amount of work to do because we would have to work with their CSS, BSS systems, gather data, customize that flow for them. With this, it's just really one click and you're done. I mean, it's very, very fast to get it up and running.
And I have to say, I've seen the demo, and from the ISP's customer perspective, it's a very easy to navigate and really seamless looking. So, you're not leaving one system to go into another. It doesn't seem like you're doing that. Yep. So it's a really nice experience from what I've seen. So I think that's really exciting for an ISP to keep their brand awareness, their identity, and have a nice experience for a customer.
That's exactly right. It looks like it's seamless from their vanity site, which might talk about the company, through the entire e-commerce platform, and all of that data just flows right back into Sonar automatically.
Yeah, and let's talk about that data because it's real time. So how critical is the real time data sharing between Actifai and Sonar for an ISP for enhancing their customers' experience, and kind of what have you implemented to make this happen?
Well, so behind the back end, obviously everything is talking to each other. And throughout the conversation with the consumer, when you get pieces of information like their address, all of that information flows in real time back and forth. So if you think about it this way, when you start an e-commerce journey, the first thing you want to do is understand whether, in fact, you can service that home or not. So the e-commerce platform that we provide automatically looks to the Sonar system to determine whether that site is actually serviceable and which of your products and prices are applicable at that individual home. We can then actually supplement that with other things like If you can't service it, that home right now, but it's on your build out plan, can we still take an order? All of that stuff is sort of built in. So at that time, we've pulled address and product catalog information directly from Sonar. We then go and ask the customer or the consumer a few questions like, do you work from home? How many devices do you have? What's your intent of how you're going to use this? We take all that data. We then pull these 1,500 to 2,000 pieces of data about demographics, about the competitors who can service you, about the household information. How many bedrooms does it have? How valuable is the home? How many square feet is it? And then come up in real time with a prediction and suggest, Lindsay, you should try our 600 megabit package. And here are the 6 reasons why. Because you work from home, it's going to give you seamless video conferencing. In fact, 86% of all your neighbors who work from home have purchased that speed in the last year. Because you have 3 bedrooms, you should have our mesh Wi-Fi unit. And then we can do comparisons with competitors on pricing and service levels and things like that. At that point, you're still a lead from Sonar's perspective. We then, if you choose that product or if you choose to change it, you will then click and accept that. We will then interface with Sonar to determine when a tech is available, if you need a tech to actually install your system. So the actual implementation, installation stuff is all seamlessly flowing back and forth. All of this data flows into Sonar. So we now know there's a customer at 123 Main Street who's interested in the product. Here's the products they're interested in. And then once you commit to the product, you become a customer or a pending customer. And then once you're actually provisioned, you become a customer. So all of that data flows seamlessly at each stage of the Sonar and Sonar Actifai integration.
So with this real-time data for an ISP, from their sales process perspective, how does this data give them a competitive edge?
So several different ways. The first is what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out that if Lindsay is the person we're talking to in the e-commerce world, what offer can I make to Lindsay with what key selling points that is going to maximize the lifetime value of Lindsay to my company? In order to do that, you need to build an artificial intelligence tool, and that artificial intelligence tool has to have data. And so every one of your listeners is going to be familiar with ChatGPT, which is an AI tool, which is called a large language model. And large language models are excellent at imitating human beings. So when you're trying to create a piece of prose or a new piece of ad copy or any of those things, they're great. But if you asked ChatGPT, what should I offer Lindsay to maximize the lifetime value? It has no idea because it wasn't trained on that data. And the problem with most companies is that they're not selling enough volume to be able to build an artificial intelligence tool that is highly predictive, because it takes hundreds of thousands of pieces of data to do it. In other words, you would have to talk to Lindsay and then every other person, 100,000 times and try different offer combinations before you could build a model that would predict accurately what Lindsay is going to do with Lindsay's 1,500 pieces of data that describe her and her family. So what we've done is with every customer interaction across every company that we've ever helped, all of that data gets anonymized and then put into a model that benefits everybody. So at this point, we have over 2 million interactions with consumers, that we know that Lindsay and Fred and Joe and Susanna and Kalik and anyone else you want to think of, this is the 1,500 pieces of data that is associated with that individual. This is what was offered to them by company X. This is what was said in terms of key selling points, and this is what they did. And that builds a great data training set so that we can optimize for every company. So that allows you to compete with the very biggest companies because that's what they're doing when they're selling 10, 20,000 orders a month. But if you're selling 1,000 orders or 20 orders a month, you could never collect that data. And so it's really allowing small companies to compete with their largest competitors on an even playing field. And when you were a monopolistic regional provider, you didn't need that. But now everyone's overbuilding each other, and you really do have to have that in order to compete. Just like you need a robust e-commerce system to be able to compete. The days, if Comcast is in your neighborhood, and you're putting up a form that says, tell us what you're interested in, we'll call you back, that's not really competing. And so you just need that tool in the marketplace today. And if you're going to do it, you might as well do it with the tool that A, is integrated completely into Sonar, but B, uses all of the artificial intelligence and learns off of the 2 million interactions that we've already done for everyone from the largest, several top 10 companies to the smallest, regional provider.
So you brought up a good point there, speaking to the small to mid-size ISPs who need to compete with these,
Yep.
Goliaths out there. So if I'm a small to medium-sized operator, small to medium-sized ISP, why do I care about AI? Why do I care what artificial intelligence does with Sonar and with Actifai?
Sure. So, artificial intelligence is this terrible concept that is a black box to almost everybody. So the way to think about artificial intelligence is it's really just what you would do as a human being if you had three things: access to almost unlimited information, the ability to process it all in real time, and not make any math mistakes. And so when you're talking to a customer, or when your e-commerce system is talking to a customer, if you don't know anything about that customer, what you're going to be able to do is put, here are my 3 or 4 generic plans, pick one. That's just not going to yield the optimal result for you. But if you're able to ask 3 or 4 questions on the site and append 1,500 pieces of data that are associated with that household, for example, that person lives in a 4-bedroom home, and suggesting that they need a mesh Wi-Fi unit because they have 4 bedrooms. And if you want to have streaming media in all those bedrooms, you really have to mesh Wi-Fi system. That's going to approximately double your sales of mesh Wi-Fi. But you can never do that as a human being because you just can't process that information quickly enough. Take the point that we just talked about in terms of working from home. If the consumer says, yes, I'm working from home, the ability to determine in their neighborhood what percentage of people working from home have bought a particular speed, and if that's an advantageous key selling point to you, bringing that out and putting it up front and center on the website, that can't be done without AI, and it can't be done without AI in a CSR environment or an e-commerce environment. So it's about looking at all the wealth of information you could gather, picking the right piece of information that's going to influence that consumer in a truthful and honest way, and get the best result for that consumer and for you as a company. You just can't do it with just offering choice.
No,
So
you can't.
It's not about the fact that it's AI. It's the fact that you can't do it any other way. It's just a tool.
And in today's age of personalization at every turn on every website, think of Amazon. People who have purchased this also purchased this, and all the data points. We're used to that now as a society. We want it to be personalized to us. And so, especially when it comes to something, that we don't all deal with day to day, we don't have the type of knowledge that you have, Ned, as to the speeds and the, connectivity. And not everybody knows all of that. So having tools that help simplify that process for them, I think is just going to be a world of difference to an ISP and helping their customer make
That's
that
exactly
decision.
right. And, Lindsay, the same thing for consumer. The average consumer buys, internet services once every 3 to 4 years. It's not something that they know a lot about. And so, if you look at even the best websites in the country that are kind of the standard type, they'll say things like, 200 megabits is really good for gaming. 600 megabits is great for gaming. Gigabit is really, really great for gaming. None of that means anything. Those differences in adjectives mean nothing. But, telling a consumer that, gigabit speeds will allow them to download games, if you determine they're a gamer, that are able to download a game in 3 minutes versus 27 minutes, or the examples we've already given from work from home, those things do make an impact on a consumer because they're really relevant. They're contextually applied. And we've all in marketing heard things about one-to-one marketing and real-time marketing. That's really what we're doing. We're just using we're looking at all the relevant opportunities to convince that consumer and determine in real time what the best plan is and best data is to convince that consumer that this is the right product for them.
Absolutely. And furthering this portion of our conversation, let's talk a little bit about preparing for next gen AI. So as AI continues to advance, what technologies and tools are on your radar for improving ISP operations and customer experience through a deeper OSS and BSS integration?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about what interactions do you have with a consumer and how can you optimize it. So the easiest way to think about where artificial intelligence makes sense is you look for a place where there is a decision being made, either overtly or inherently, over and over and over again, and where that decision has real economic impact upon your bottom line as a broadband provider, and where that is relatively left to human beings to make a decision. So that's why we focused first on new customer sales, because you do that function many, many, many times a month. It really matters economically to your company, and it's relatively left to a CSR as a human or a website which has typically no intelligence built into it whatsoever. Other things like retention, someone calls you to cancel, happens all the time. What do you do to save that person? What piece of information can you bring or offer can you bring to make sure that person stays? They call in for any reason or go on the website for any reason. Upsell. What can I do to, in fact, convince this customer that they'd be better off in a different plan? So I'll give you an example of artificial intelligence. If you look at all of their information that we bring, so we understand their price sensitivity or price elasticity from an economic perspective. But if we look at data usage within their broadband experience, so everyone has at their fingertips, usually in their data lake, for each customer, how much data they used a month. If that customer used, let's say, 3 gigabits of data a day, and they really didn't vary from that, so technically their standard deviation was relatively low. But once a month or twice a month, they used 100 gigabits of data. That person is a gamer, because that's what they're really doing. They're downloading the newest game or a patch, and those things are, 50 to 100 gigabits. And so if someone calls in and they're on 300 megabits and you want to sell them gigabit, you could in fact say to them, we've just got, gigabit is now available to your home, which means nothing to them. You can have speeds up to, 1 gigabit, which means nothing to them. It will help you in many ways. In fact, games will download in 3 minutes versus 27 minutes at your current speed. That matters to them. If you recognize that there are patterns that indicate that they are working from home, lots of data sharing, at the speeds that occur in video conferencing, kind of up and down, you could say, you would use that selling point. So that's another place that artificial intelligence can, in real time, analyzing the usage data, append that to their economic and competitive data that exists in the marketplace, and know how likely they are to, in fact, purchase that product and what we should offer them. In randomized tests that we've done, we've seen an 87% lift in upsell by using that approach versus business as usual. And then you get into other things like operations. Should I send a truck out or should I not send a truck out? Well, there's a wealth of data in your data sets that would suggest that that may or may not happen. Maybe this person is called on average 16 times a month around things that actually didn't need it. Or maybe looking at your systems, you know that there is an outage in the area. Obviously, you wouldn't want to send a truck. You'd rather say, Lindsay, we're actually someone is already looking at that in your neighborhood. It's not a problem with your house, it's a problem with the neighborhood. Like all of those things reduce your truck rolls and your cost to serve. There are just, any broadband provider looks at the P&L and looks for those places where there are big chunks of cost, where there's an inherent or overt decision being made over and over and over again, many times a month, and that is relatively left to a human being to interpret, those are great places for artificial intelligence. And so we've built retention products, we've built upsell products. We're in the process of building customer CSR coaching products that can listen to what the customer is being told, analyzing that through an AI technology called natural language processing, comparing that with the optimal script for that individual, not the script that is generic, and determining how you could actually improve the performance of that individual. All of those are in development, as well as truck roll optimization, credit, bad debt reduction, and it kind of goes on.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it sounds like all this is doing with AI is enhancing challenges, or it's fixing the challenges that the ISP's customers are having. At the end of the day, you're flipping the script and making it all about that customer instead of just about your speeds and feeds and what you have. You're putting the customer at the center of it and saying, we understand what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. We relate to you. Here's how we can help you.
Yeah,
It
we're
makes such a
contextualizing
difference.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're contextualizing it and making it into something that makes rational sense to that consumer. In the same way that they would say, to a friend, what speed did you buy, and why did you buy that? Right? We're just doing that because it's hard to do, but when you do it, people buy, and we've seen conversion rates go up, between 5 and 30%. We've seen the average revenue per user go up between 5 and 38%. Mesh, secondary sales like mesh Wi-Fi have doubled, and we've actually seen retention improve. So on average, retention improves by 9% at the 18-month mark. Just that's because we've only been in business 3 years, so we don't have much data beyond 18 months. That's enough customers to make it worthwhile, because you're fundamentally right-sizing the customer. What you're not doing is selling the most price-sensitive customer the highest price package, because they're going to churn. And alternatively, you're not selling your least price-sensitive or your wealthiest customer your cheapest package, because you're missing out on opportunity. And what's really interesting is when you look at the data, because we have a tremendous amount of data now from all of our customer installations. Take an example of pitching to the wrong group. So let's just say that there are two groups of people. One that is relatively target rich for a high speed, high value package, and one that's more conservative. And then you've got just two packages, low and high. When you offer the high speed package to the low propensity customer group, your lifetime value declines by between 5 and 12%. But if you offer the low speed to your high propensity customer, you see about a 50% degradation in LTV. And so knowing before you actually make an offer which group that customer belongs to is critical to positioning the product. Because some people say, well, I'll just offer my highest speed package every single time. It actually destroys value to do that.
Yeah,
But
know
you don't
your
know
audience.
that because you can't test it. Right.
Right. You have to know your
sometimes
audience.
you're saying that to the person who lives alone in the 600 square foot studio apartment, who lives on a fixed income, and when they hear that $130 price point, they simply just go to another website or they hang up the phone. And you just have to know who you're talking to, right? That's all it is. And then you need to know what that person is most likely to do based on their typical usage patterns and things like that.
Yeah, and AI is such a help in that.
Well, no human can do it, right? Because you don't have access to the data. You don't have the ability as a human to process all that in real time, and you're going to make math mistakes.
Exactly. I make math mistakes all the time.
So do I. Everyone does.
No, well, really wanted to say thank you for walking us through, really this amazing new partnership. We're so excited for it. And if there are folks that have questions for you or they'd like to connect with you, is there a place that you would like to send them?
Sure. I mean, they can go to our site, Actifai, actif.ai, or write us at info@actif.ai, actif.ai, and we'll get someone to talk to. We only learn from talking to our customers. Every product we've ever built is in response to some request that a customer had, including the very first one. And so we love to hear, problems that people are trying to solve. We love to hear challenges that they're seeing in the competitive marketplace. Or things they think of would be great uses for artificial intelligence. They just don't have the data scientists and software engineers to build them. We'd love to hear from people, any of your customers or anyone in the marketplace.
Amazing. Well, Ned, thank you again so much for joining us. Really insightful conversation. It's been a pleasure, and we'll have you back on another time.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. A pleasure to talk to you, as usual.